Hey, what's up, Gluty?
Hi, Morty. Do you want to develop an
No,
app?
thanks.
Rick, why does it say do not develop my app on your intern's forehead?
Why, you want to develop one?
Oh, I'm glad you asked that, Jerry. It's so you don't develop his app.
Hey, we got a new episode of Rick and Morty, The Old Man and the Seat, and I'm here with Jamie.
Hi.
And we're going to talk about our thoughts on it. So, okay, quick recap. A little bit different than the first episode, the season premiere. We have kind of a few different threads that we're following. We have Morty and his dad going on an adventure. We have Summer and Beth doing their thing, and then we have Rick doing his own thing.
Being his own person, being sort of exactly what I think this whole episode showcases, or is its own theme. He's on his own.
Yeah, and so each of them go on different adventures. Morty and Jerry go up and make an app. And
With Gluty,
Gluty,
who we just knew. Yeah,
yes,
we just met.
We just met, and Gluty actually was part of the like little teases that they gave us earlier this year. And I don't know, I really liked that. I kind of wish that it focused on maybe only one avenue. Because I felt like I only got a little bit of taste of each of them,
Of everybody's.
each of the adventures. Versus, I mean, I would have also just done with like Rick's adventure and then maybe Morty and Jerry.
Yeah. Try
Yeah.
to deal with Gluty. Yeah, I kind of like that. I think that I like the structure. I do think that the Summer and Beth sort of strange adventure was a little superfluous, but I guess it needed to be that story in order to show how Gluty's sort of overlords were about to take over Earth in that way. So that makes a little bit of sense. But yeah, I thought it was a lot of fun. I had a pretty good time watching this, particularly watching Rick's side of the story. I really enjoyed the sort of path he was going down on his sort of individual. I guess you could call it a breakdown.
Yeah.
Learning a bit about himself.
And we'll get to that in a second, but just out of curiosity, how did you feel this episode compared to the first episode? I personally loved the first episode of the season. And I wouldn't say that this necessarily fell flat, but I think that the first episode set such a high bar, and this one was enjoyable, but maybe it's not landing on like my top episodes ever.
I think, where the first episode was more just Rick and Morty are back at it again, doing the same exact adventures, the sort of fun side of things. I think there's a bit, it seems like they're trying to catch up to the 7 episodes that they have this season. And so they...
I think they only have 5.
Do they only have 5?
I don't know.
Oh. It's a shortened season.
Well, I'm thinking they have 5 total.
It's
Okay.
even worse.
Yeah, no, that's a really small amount. I mean, if you think about it, we only have 3 more episodes left.
So they want to like set an arc and then get through that arc as early as possible. So I understand where they're trying to take the Rick story, whatever they're going to do with Rick this season, and try to get him there a little bit quicker. And I agree with you, though. I don't think it was as like punchy as the last one.
Yeah, I think punchy is a good word because like the first episode, I was finding myself kind of like cackling,
Yeah.
and this episode, I had like a few moments where I was like, meh.
Yeah.
But
I will say there were moments where I was feeling something particularly for Rick, but I was
Yeah.
also still laughing, and I didn't know that was an emotion you could have where you can like laugh and like be sad at the same time.
oh, I do that all the time.
Oh yeah, okay.
That's also, I wish I was joking. I'm not. So, Rick, let's talk about that because I feel like you have a lot to say about that and what this episode could be setting up for even the future of this series beyond just this season.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, there were a couple of things moving forward here. First of all, we don't have Rick with Morty, which is normally his emotional crutch or his I would say an emotional crutch, but it feels more like a wall sometimes where he uses him as a battering ram in order to get over whatever he's feeling emotionally. This time he just had himself, and what we learned was Tony, who's played by Jeffrey Wright from Westworld, and he seemed to have found a newfound friend, also trying to be a punching bag later on, but it seemed like we were setting up something about Rick's existential crises and his loneliness and his inability to keep and maintain friends.
Yeah. No, that's, wow, what a bummer.
Yeah.
Sorry, Rick.
And control, I think.
Yeah, well, I found that a huge theme that feels like it's going to prevail through the whole season is this lack of control. I mean, Jerry is back in the house, and we saw in the first episode, like, dynamics have changed. And so it's kind of interesting that the second episode we see, like, oh, dynamics really have changed in that we have, again, those kind of 3 adventures, and it leaves Rick going on an adventure by himself.
Yeah.
So the whole thing kind of encompasses the fact that Rick wants to take a shit privately in this toilet in this very beautiful world. Which we were talking about this before we started shooting, and I'm going to be a punching bag for you, internet. I think bathroom humor is not funny. Like, I don't think it's funny. I'm sorry. So sue me.
I'm not going to disagree with you, honestly, but I somehow think that they South Park knows it. They know it as well. They're gonna.
Yeah, I mean, and South Park is one of my favorite shows. Rick and Morty is one of my favorite shows. Like, obviously, like, I can grin and bear it.
Yeah.
But that was the premise of this episode, and I think maybe that's why I feel a little bit like meh towards it. I mean, I'm just being honest. Like, is because it's not my type of humor.
I mean, in my perspective, I was thinking, it was like, oh yeah, no, you know what? Like, that would be a really nice. Like, I have my own sort of qualms about public restrooms and things like that. So
it's
I'm
very relatable.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I'm just sort of like, I would love to have that situation. I would understand where maybe if I don't have that control, I would feel a little. I don't know. Someone's in my space, and that doesn't feel good to me sometimes.
Totally. So that was episode 2. I mean, I was going to say something so mean. I was going to say a whole lot of nothing. But I mean, I didn't feel it was as meaty as the first episode.
Correct. Yeah.
So
it set up something interesting in there, which is, I want to say it was the Globofen scenario. And I'm curious if we're going to use that or see that later on in the season. Whatever that thing is
like goop.
Yeah, that Jerry's like licking out of, and he's like seeing a version of himself, like a happier version of himself somewhere else. I'm curious if that'll come back.
Well, and that's funny that you bring it up, and we'll wrap up right after this, but that the first episode, you had those crystals where you're seeing, there's kind of like a sort of, I don't want to say delusion, but you're seeing a version of what could happen. And then this episode we have, you're taking whatever that goop is and you're seeing what you want. I can't remember the quote that Rick gave,
it's sort of essentially, it's what you have and what you want mixed together.
Yeah. So interested to see how that plays out for the rest of the season. Let us know in the comments below if you have any theories about maybe how, like, seeing into the future or hallucinating, I guess, will come into play for the rest of the season. Don't forget to check out our thoughts on the first episode of this season and our review on Mandalorian episode 2. And for all things, everything else, keep it locked at IGN.